Welcome everybody to the Brickstore Museum's Bicentennial Marker event, live here on YouTube and Facebook. My name is Cynthia Walker. I'm the director here at the Brickstore Museum and your MC for the evening. I'll make a note as I can hear a truck going by that the museum is lucky enough to be here on Main Street in Kennebunk. So if you hear the buzz of cars and motorcycles, it's because we are a historic building that was built really close to the street, or the street was built really close to us, I should say. So we have no way of getting away from those sounds. So you'll hear some buzzing of cars and trucks going by during the presentation. I apologize for that. So to get us started, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the indigenous land of the Abenaki peoples, namely the Almushiqua and the Wabanaki people that the current towns between the Ogunquit River and the Kennebunk rivers now inhabit. These peoples have lived on this land for thousands of years, and while we are concentrating on the last 200 of those years tonight, please remember that generations of stories go back as far as the last ice age in this region. This area specifically was once named Namskoskok and was home to the Almushiqua people, which was part of the Eastern Abenaki. Seasonally as well, Wabanaki peoples from northern Maine lived and worked here as well. In fact, the name Kennebunk, which we're now called, in Eastern Abenaki, describes the long water place, and is sometimes translated as long cut bank, which you might see in various histories. So you'll see that I'm sitting up here again in our brick store. We are a group of 5 historic buildings. This is one of our galleries, and I've chosen to sit here right in front of the women's history section. So Eliza Wildsborn is sitting behind me, along with several of our pieces of our textile collection. We wanted to do this virtual event to mark the occasion of the town of Kennebunk's 200th anniversary of being its own town. And in a few minutes, you're going to be hearing from Kennebunk's town historian, Kathy Ostrander-Roberts, who will tell the story of Kennebunk's becoming a town 200 years ago today. As you know, the region's history started long before 1820. And if you want to dive into that history, the museum is presenting a year-long program or programs called Century Saturdays, and that explores the history of the people who lived here over each century. So you can already find the 16th and 17th centuries online on our Digital Learning Center. And those portals feature lectures by historians, activities to try at home, and then online exhibitions of this region's history. Up next is our 18th Century Saturday, which will premiere via its online portal on Saturday, July 18th. This Century Saturday series is supported by a grant from the Maine Humanities Council with additional help from our marquee sponsor, Kennebunk Savings. I wanted to announce a special event that's going on to kind of kick off the 18th Century Saturday. So the night before, on Friday, July 17th, as many organizations had, we had planned an in-person sit-down dinner at the beginning of this year. And then, of course, the coronavirus has changed everybody's plans. So now we've pivoted to an event that is an 18th century takeout dinner with a live Zoom lecture by Chef Bill Irish, who will be talking about 18th century cooking. So it's intended to be kind of a community dinner where we'll all sit down together and enjoy an 18th century inspired meal and hear more about what people were doing in the 18th century. So tickets are now on sale for that on our website. You can just go to the calendar section and reserve your tickets. And then all funds that are raised there are going to support our Digital Learning Center, which literally grows by the day with new content and resources for people of all ages when you can't get into the museum physically. So Today is also the official kickoff day of the Bicentennial Distance Challenge, and I'm going to put our screen back up so you can see that. See if I can get it. There's a reminder for our 18th century Saturday. All right, so as I said, it's the kickoff day for our Bicentennial Distance Challenge, sponsored by Southern Maine Healthcare, which challenges everyone who wants to participate to travel a distance of 7 miles, which is the same distance between Kennebunk and Wells at this point in time, which you'll hear more about that history in a minute with Kathy. And you can complete the 7 miles by running, walking, or bicycling. And you can run a speed race of the full 7 miles, or you can split the 7 miles over a variety of days while walking with your family or your dog. It's supposed to be fun. So whatever you want to complete it in, you are welcome to do that. And then the key is that those 7 miles were traveled by foot by inhabitants of Wells or Kennebunk when they had to get to a town meeting in the other town before we separated into 2 towns. So you can just imagine prior to 1820 having to walk in the snow, 2 ways uphill for 7 miles to to get to your town meeting. So this is just a fun way for everybody to celebrate the bicentennial this year, and also obviously a way to get active and participate in history. So the virtual distance challenge means that you get to choose your race day or days and your race course, and then once you complete it, you just send us the results. You'll get an official race packet once you sign up, and a finisher medal, a heavy kind of finisher medal on a ribbon when the challenge ends in October. So you can register anytime, register and complete the race anytime between now and October 17th. So we've given you a long time to train, sign up, and complete your race. And the goal of the race, as I said, is to bring our communities of Kennebunk and Wells together to complete this challenge in support of our shared history. The best thing about the race, I feel, is that your registration supports both the Brickstore Museum and the Historical Society of Wells and Ogunquit. And additionally, we've made the decision that due to losses from the COVID-19 pandemic, monies raised during the race are also going to go to support other local cultural organizations in Wells and Kennebunk. So your participation will go far to advance cultural history and studies here in the town that you live. So just a reminder, you can go sign up anytime starting tonight at our website, which is brickstoremuseum.org. And now we're going to get on with the show. So just a couple of items on what to expect from this evening. If you're watching on YouTube, then wonderful. Please press the subscribe button, which is down right below this video. It looks like a little bell to subscribe to the museum's YouTube channel. We put up a lot of different history videos exploring our shared histories and our collections during the week. And then either place you're watching, if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat box, and then we'll be answering them as we go through this evening. So coming up first is Town Historian Kathy Ostrander-Roberts' lecture on Kennebunk's founding. And then we'll switch over to unveil our most recently conserved artifact from Kennebunk's history, and you'll hear about that story as well. And then lastly, we'll be saying 3 cheers to Kennebunk's 200th anniversary with whatever cocktail or beverage you choose to hold up. So let's get on with the celebration. And here is Kathy Ostrander-Roberts.
I'm Kathy Ostrander-Roberts. I'm the current town historian for the town of Kennebunk, Maine. I'm here to wish Kennebunk a happy bicentennial today in honor of its separation from the town of Wells and its incorporation as a town in its own right as of June 24th, 1820. A lot of people ask me why 1820 is the date that we are celebrating and why not some earlier date when clearly Kennebunk had been settled for hundreds of years prior to 1820? So I'm here to give a little summary of how that all came about. The name Kennebunk is a Native American term thought to mean long cut bank, indicative of what is now the Great Hill near the Mousam River. And the indigenous tribes who lived here were here for hundreds of years prior to any settlement by Europeans. In fact, the first European settlement was in 1643 by a man named John Sanders, who built his cabin near the mouth of the Mousam River in what is now Parsons Beach. In 1643, we weren't a state, and we weren't even a town. We were known as Kennebunk, but we were part of the town of Wells, Massachusetts. And in fact, Wells was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And it went along like that all the way until 1748, when settlers at the landing decided that traveling all the way to Wells proper over pretty much non-existent roads and wilderness was a hardship. And so they petitioned the town of Wells to ask them to separate. The town of Wells did not like the plan, so they declined the petition. However, they did allow the folks of the area known as Kennebunk to build their own meeting house, which they in fact did at the landing. That meeting house stood for 20 plus years and then was taken down. Parts of it were used to construct a new meeting house in Kennebunk Center on Main Street. In fact, that building still stands, and it is now the Unitarian Universalist Church. So Kennebunkers were now allowed to attend worship more locally and didn't have to travel all the way to Wells, but we were still part of Wells and still part of Massachusetts. In the late 1700s, when tensions began to boil between America and England, of course, we remained part of Wells. It was financially smarter to do so. Our militias joined forces and fought as members of Wells, Massachusetts in the Revolution. The question of separation didn't really come back again until the 1800s, following the War of 1812 and the 1807 embargo. Again, financial issues came into play, and the petition to separate from Wells was again tabled. It didn't really gain momentum until 1816, when talk of separating Maine from Massachusetts became more important to everyone. And so on June 24th of 1820 is when, following Maine's separation from Massachusetts, the first act of legislation that Governor King signed was allowing Kennebunk to separate from the town of Wells. And that signature of June 24th, 1820 is held as our date of incorporation and why we celebrate that date. Our first town meeting was held in August of 1820 in the church on Main Street that is now the Unitarian Universalist Church. But that is how it came about. We are now obviously celebrating the statehood at the same year as we are the incorporation of Kennebunk, and we had planned great celebration for this coming weekend, which unfortunately, due to COVID, has been postponed. The original plans began in 2004 with former historian Joyce Butler and town clerk Ethelyn Marthia, and so one more year to us does not seem like a long time. In fact, I think it will give us more time to make a suitable celebration even more fantastic. And we hope that you all attend. So happy anniversary, Kennebunk, to your incorporation 200 years ago today.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much to Kathy Ostrander for pulling that together so wonderfully and so quickly. I have to admit, I asked her this favor last week. So I really appreciate her coming through for us and for telling us the story of how our towns split and became two. So happy anniversary to both Wells and Kennebunk for that occasion. Next up, we are going to hear from Bruce Jackson, who is one of the museum's trustees. He's vice president of the board, and he's going to help us explore one of our newest conserved pieces here at the Brickstore Museum. We have a collection of about 70,000 objects and archival materials that belong to Kennebunk's history as well as the region. And every year we're able to fund the conservation of one or two of those pieces. This year it was selected that we focus on something that had to do with the bicentennial. So our collection staff, Leanne Hayden and Catherine Huzzy, made the selection that we focus on the Unitarian Universalist Church Weathervane, which Bruce will tell us more about in a moment. If anybody's looking for some context about how costly these repairs can be, this weathervane was about $7,000 in conservation costs. And that just speaks to the importance of funding local arts and humanities to make sure these pieces are able to stay around into the future. So more and more generations are able to enjoy them. So without further ado, here is Bruce Jackson to introduce the weathervane.
Weathervanes are an iconic symbol of New England. Without modern forecasting tools, weathervanes became very popular because weather forecasting was so critical to seafaring and farming industries. A sudden wind change was often the very first sign of changing weather. Weathervanes reflect the people and communities that work beneath them. Shevendrian, born in Elliott in 1683, is often thought of as America's first weathervane maker. Weathervanes were often made by metalsmiths who hammered soft metals into shapes. Other weathervanes were made by farmers, and they put them on top of their barns. Weathervanes became a form of folk art that reflected the landscapes in which they were created. For this reason, Kennebunk is known for its ear of corn weathervane that sits atop the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church just across the street from the museum. This weathervane is carved wood and was gilded in gold. Beginning in the mid-1770s, it adorned the steeple of the church. The church was also the town's meeting house in the 18th and 19th centuries. The ear of corn represented the town's farming origins. It also long symbolized welcome, rebirth, prosperity, harvest, and growth in both the Algonquin and Western cultures. This weathervane saw 200 years of Kennebunk history before being replaced by a replica in 2003. The museum acquired the original from the church, but it had been badly deteriorated. The gold leaf was nearly all gone and the wood was badly eroded. For this year's Bicentennial exhibit, we selected the weathervane for conservation and took it to East Point Furniture Conservation in Brunswick, a nationally recognized conservator of wood products. It's been stabilized for this exhibition and we're proud to have it on display. The museum's work in conservation is never done. If you would like to support conservation projects like this, please take a look at our website to learn more. Thank you.
Here we are. Thank you to Bruce for giving us that wonderful introduction to the weathervane. I just wanted to give you an up-close look at what it actually looks like now when it's in its stand and unveil it for everybody to be able to see up close. So here it is, and as Bruce mentioned, there is a tiny bit of that gilt paint that's still on it, but most of it you can see right down through to the wood and some of the white paint that was on there as well. And you can see what was done at the conservatoire is to reconnect these pieces that have been chipped off over time. But we didn't bring it back to a quality where it looked like new, because it certainly is not. It was constructed over 200 years ago, and it's supposed to look like that. So here is the newly conserved ear of corn weather vane. This forward is all metal, so it's very heavy on this end, while the other end is all wood. So as you carry it, the interesting thing is you can see how much more mass it carries on this side, but this little arrow over here is much heavier, so it actually weighs itself out. And then it results in that metal kind of four pointed piece right at the top. And then I want to do a special shout out to Bruce, who you just saw on screen, who built us this wonderful base, especially for the weather vane, because it literally is just a pole that obviously is supposed to go into a steeple, which I will show you another image of that over here. We have some artists that, for the Bicentennial show that's opening soon, painted the Unitarian Church, of course, with that wonderful ear of corn weather vane on top. So this one's by Diana Anderson. She did a fantastic rendition of what the weather vane looks like. And anybody driving downtown, excuse the squeaky floors, anybody driving downtown will be able to see that replica ear of corn weather vane still atop the Unitarian Church from now on. And then of course when you come into the museum, this is literally the first artifact that you're going to be able to see upon coming in the front door, which is right there. So we thank Bruce once again for building this fantastic holder for this weather vane. It looks really great. And then of course thank you guys for taking an up-close look at our brand newly conserved weather vane. Wonderful. Thank you so much to Bruce for helping me and visiting us here in the museum to be able to let us know more about the weather vane. So right now I wanted to host our 3 Cheers for Kennebunk's anniversary. And I am not allowed to have a drink up here in the gallery, so I do not have one. But if everybody wants to raise their glass of whatever it is that you have chosen to celebrate Kennebunk's anniversary, I will do 3 hip hips if you want to say the hooray. And I wanted to wish Kennebunk, as well as Wells, and the whole state of Maine a happy 200th anniversary of our shared history, and we really look forward to seeing what we all do in the future and where Maine goes from here, because it's really a wide open horizon. Just judging on those who live here now, where our past has brought us to the present and where we're all going. I think it's very promising to watch all of the young people, as well as anyone who is living here at current, where we're all pushing towards, and I think it's towards a better shared future. So if you all want to raise your glass, happy anniversary Kennebunk, hip hip, hip hip, hip hip. Excellent. Happy anniversary Kennebunk. All right, everybody, we just wanted to thank everyone for joining us for this celebration of the 200th anniversary of the naming of the town of Kennebunk and us separating from the town of Wells to become our own town. I hope that you enjoyed the history and the shared culture that we all really get to enjoy as inhabitants of these towns even today. And the chief goal of the Brickstore Museum here is to make sure that we don't lose sight of how we really are all connected in a variety of different ways. So I want to share my screen once again to remind everyone that you can find all of the resources and links that we mentioned tonight on our website, which is brickstoremuseum.org. So you'll be able to find those Century Saturday portals that I talked about at the very beginning. You can find a history timeline of the town of Kennebunk and this region as well on the Digital Learning Center, as well as historic recipes, oral histories, live, or I should say recorded presentations on Kennebunk history and culture, and a variety of different things. So go explore that on our Digital Learning Center on our website. And finally, I just wanted to thank all of the museum supporters and members and business partners, as well as sponsors, all of whom you can see listed on our website as well. I just want to give a huge thank you to them, especially in this year of well, a very different year anyway. And the support that we have seen is really overwhelming, and we all truly appreciate it here at the Brickstore Museum, and you've really kept us going and allowed us to bring programs like this one to life. So again, explore the brickstoremuseum.org, and then we look forward to seeing everybody soon here at the Brickstore Museum.